Murder at Ocean View College. Chapter 8. Mr. Taylor's Class. Danny sat up straight in his chair and tried to pay attention to the dull voice of Mr. Taylor. Math shouldn't be so boring, Danny thought. Unfortunately, Old Man Taylor still didn't know that. What's wrong with this guy? He used to be a better teacher, but now he doesn't seem to care if we understand at all. He has his back to the class, and he's talking to the chalkboard while he's trying to solve for X. Danny studied the teacher's back. Mr. Taylor's dark hair was thin and always looked like he forgot to comb it. There was a large bald spot right on top of his head. His blue shirt was pulled out from his pants, and one side hung down far below his belt. His dark pants had handprints of chalk dust on the legs. Danny shook his head and straightened up again so as not to wrinkle his uniform. He ran his hand over his thick head of hair. He would be 20 years old in 4 months, and he wondered if he would look like Mr. Taylor someday. He certainly hoped not. Danny took a look around the room. Joey, the captain of the football team, was in the back row. He had his head down on the desk, and he was snoring loudly. Next to him, Tommy was listening to music through his headphones. He had his eyes closed. Tiffany, the person everyone believed would be the next business success from Ocean View College, was dressed in her gray wool suit and white blouse. She was sitting across the aisle from Danny, and he could tell that she wasn't paying attention either. She had her accounting book open and looked like she was studying for a test. And Amber, sitting just in the next row behind Tiffany, was painting her fingernails a metallic black to match her eye shadow. Today she had 3 white stripes in her hair. It made Danny think of a zebra or a skunk. He almost laughed. Simon, the super straight A student, shook his head and looked angry as he put his books in his backpack and walked out the door. Mr. Taylor turned around when the door banged shut. He squinted his eyes behind his thick glasses, then rubbed his broad nose, leaving a line of chalk dust on his face. "Are there any questions?" He looked out at the room, but didn't make eye contact with any of the board students. "If there are no questions, the test is on Friday next week." Everybody asked in chorus, "Test? What test?" "Well, it was supposed to be today, but Miss Quinn's," he hesitated, "death has delayed the midterm exams." He looked down at his shoes before speaking again. "If any of you has questions, I will be in my office most afternoons this week and next." Without raising his eyes, he dismissed the class. Danny sat for a minute before gathering up his books. He stared at Mr. Taylor and silently asked himself several questions. How old is this man? Is this the way a grieving lover would act? After all, he was Miss Quinn's fiancé. Shouldn't he be taking time off from work or something? Come to think of it, Mr. Taylor and Miss Quinn seemed like a very odd pair. Ruby Quinn was older than Mr. Taylor, wasn't she? He guessed that Miss Quinn was about 40, pretty old to be getting married. Mr. Taylor looks like he might be, in his 30s, maybe older. Danny cracked his knuckles while he thought. He watched closely as Mr. Taylor gathered up his papers, erased the chalkboard, and left the room. Danny sat alone in the classroom and continued thinking. And Miss Quinn. Even though she was old, she was pretty glamorous. She always wore makeup and nice clothes. Her fingernails were always polished, and her blonde hair was long and curly. As a matter of fact, he wondered, what was she doing with Mr. Taylor? What did she see in him, anyway? Maybe she liked the way he did math. He almost laughed. He stood up and headed for the door. On the way out, Danny felt a tug on his sleeve and turned to see Amber batting her eyes at him. "Hey, Danny, what's up?" "Nothing much," he replied, not wanting to stop and talk, because he was supposed to report to Captain Mitchell about his poster assignment. He was supposed to start this afternoon, going around to classes and asking for information. Amber stood there chewing on her thumbnail, one she had just painted. The snake tattoo on her wrist danced around. For just a moment, the snake wrapped around her wrist made Danny feel sorry for her because she was so weird, so odd looking. He decided he didn't need to be in such a hurry. "What's up with you?" "We're really busy in the duplicating office now, you know, with midterms delayed and all. Everybody has something to be copied." "Do you like working there?" he asked, sensing there was something she wanted to say, but he didn't know what to ask. "Oh, yeah. You know, all the teachers give us their tests to be copied." She stopped talking and Danny waited. Then he cleared his throat. "You ever get a good look at any of those tests? It must be kind of fun seeing the test before the rest of the class." "What do you mean?" She looked afraid. Danny looked at her and decided to proceed with caution. "Oh, like Mr. Taylor's midterm. You see it? You heard him say we have the exam on Friday. Has he already copied it? Have you seen it? Is it hard?" He laughed to show that he was joking, but she didn't notice. She spoke quickly. "Yes, a lot of people have." Then she turned on her heels and nearly ran away. Danny thought that was odd. He scratched his head and looked at his shoes. There on the ground, near the toe of his shoe, was a scrap of paper. He bent down to pick it up. He read it, but it didn't make sense. CK20. He stuffed the piece of paper in his pocket and decided he should follow Amber.